Next up, it's a Movie Spotlight, our weekly segment reviewing some of the latest cinematic releases at the Korean box office and online. And of course, we cannot do that without the help of our film critics. So let's bring them in now. First, to my right, we have Jason Bechervaise. Jason, hello, it's good to see you.
Hello, great to be back here.
And to my left, we have Darcy Paquet back with us again. Darcy, hello, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, so welcome back. It's great to have you back with us again. Okay, so we have two international releases to talk about this week. The first major release is a Japanese anime, a trend at the current box office at the moment in Korea. It is another Japanese anime. We'll get to that shortly. It's called Suzume. In Korean, it's called 스즈메의 문단속. Jason, what can you tell us about this new animation?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting movie. It's a new film from Makoto Shinkai, who has made half a dozen films before this one, including, of course, the enormously successful Your Name, that's sold, well over 3 million tickets in Korea, and is the third grossing animation, Japanese animation of all time. So, $382 million worldwide. His new feature, like so many of the anime films that I've watched, like Spirited Away, begins really quite fantastical, but quickly gets really quite deep. It follows the character Suzume, voiced by Nakoka Hara, who discovers a connection between, you've got these strange doors in the mountains, and there are these kind of natural disasters. And when they open, unleashed is this kind of giant worm that causes these these really bad earthquakes. People's cell phones are kind of going off, and she meets this young man, and they work together to try and stop these worms from causing too much damage with the help of something called Keystone. It's now in the form of a kitten. It's quite hard to track down. It sounds bizarre. It is a bit bizarre, if I'm honest, and It gets a little bit convoluted. I had to really concentrate because I watched it with Korean subtitles, but actually, the film is not too far from reality, as it deals with personal and national trauma in the wake of these natural disasters that Japan sadly has so many of, and firmly kind of at the center of the story is the 2011 earthquake in Japan. So lots going on in the film for sure, and very, very interesting.
Yes, so there's this very powerful allegory at the centre of the story then. Darcy, what did you make of it? It appears there is a lot going on. Perhaps it's quite hard to keep up, especially, I guess, for those less familiar with the work of Makoto Shinkai and the fantastical world of Japanese animation.
Yeah, in some ways it makes more sense visually than it does trying to explain it, I think. if you try to summarize the plot in words, it just sounds so bizarre. But then, seeing it visually, it helps. And emotionally too, it kind of makes sense. There's a focus in the film on kind of abandoned places, because it's these abandoned places where these doors appear. And the director talked about how the fact that, with a declining population or population's growing older, there are more and more places in Japan that are being abandoned. And so there's that, it has that kind of emotional feel to it in some ways. It's a story of this young girl, and it's kind of coming of age at the same time, and that it's about these places that have been left behind. And then, it eventually does move up to the part of the country that was so badly affected by that March 11th disaster. So, emotionally there's a big range in the film, but it's really well done. I was impressed, visually and in terms of the imagination of the film. It's not a kid's film in any way, I think.
It's pretty heavy.
But I was really impressed with it. And, Your Name was also another example of a film that, it feels very realistic in some ways, and then you get these moments of fantasy that kind of emerge from reality that are just really striking. Definitely there's, I'm impressed by this director, and I think that he's probably got a lot more coming for us in the future.
So he tackles that aspect quite sensitively then, the earthquakes and the real trauma that the Japanese people went through.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem to be one of his big motivations for making this film. And, it's been, 12 years now. And so that there is a younger generation in Japan who won't be as familiar with it because they were quite young when it happened. And I guess he wanted to make a film that kind of kept this in people's memories. Like, didn't want to, you want to move on from a national tragedy, but you don't want to forget about it. And so, I mean, this film, I think, is an effort to do that.
Jason, what did you make of it?
Yeah, no, it was really good. It was a really interesting viewing experience for me. Like Darcy said, it is, very fantastical, but at the same time, there's a real kind of, it anchors itself into something that's been, very traumatic for Japan, and it deals with lots of different issues. Darcy also mentioned the population decline, which very much comes up in the film. And it's just so beautiful to look at. And whenever I watch a Japanese animation, I'm just really struck by how creative they are in terms of the visuals, but also in terms of the writing. And there's been a long tradition in Japan of animations dealing with issues in Japanese society and history as well, and just doing it in ways that are really, really creative and imaginative. And I think that's one of the big appeals of anime, and that's very much central here. So yeah, very good film. And I guess, I wasn't really surprised by its depth, but I was as well, I guess. It was like a 10 a.m. screening, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is a Japanese anime. Sure. I was like, okay, I need to sit down and get comfortable, but also very much kind of expecting a lot of depth, and that's exactly what there is plenty of. And so yeah, I certainly recommend it. Very, very good, very, very good animation, which I see doing very well here.
It sounds very impressive. Jason, as I mentioned earlier, this is not the first anime to perform well at the box office this year. We reviewed the first Slam Dunk a few weeks back, and that's been a huge hit, amassing close to 4 million admissions so far. What's behind the interest in these films, would you say, very briefly?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons behind it. I think, firstly, there's long been a fan base when it comes to Japanese animation and manga as well. And you see that with the first Slam Dunk. But the film's actually really great. And I think, in terms of its popularity, first, initially it was men in their, 30s and 40s. But, then it was kind of other kind of parts of the, Korea's demographic going out to see that film. And also, Your Name was huge. So yeah, long been a fan base when it comes to these movies. But also, I think it's interesting looking at the news this week, what's going on in terms of Japan and Korea kind of relations. And I think they are slowly improving. And I think, lots of people are heading over to Japan. We're not seeing the boycott that we once did under the Moon Jae-in administration. So, and also, even if this love disappears from the world tonight, quite a long title. This did really well the end of last year. It was on release for weeks, and what was interesting about that film, Japanese melodrama, it was attracting young women. So it's both female and male audiences going out to check out these movies.
Okay, so that was Suzume. Moving on now to the Academy Award nominated film Tar. That's been receiving rave reviews ever since it premiered at the Venice Film Festival last September. Darcy, this stars Cate Blanchett in what is potentially an Oscar-winning role. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, it's an outstanding performance. It does seem to be either Cate Blanchett or Michelle Yeoh, and probably Cate Blanchett for the Oscar. We'll find out soon. But she's played a huge range of characters over her career, but this is probably one of her most interesting characters that she's been given the opportunity to play. And she's a conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic. We get kind of an overview of her career in the opening, which is kind of a New Yorker style discussion with a real New Yorker reporter. But a composer, a conductor, someone who has won many awards and is celebrated and is clearly talented. Like the film shows and convinces you of her talent. At the same time as it shows you her weaknesses and her darker side and her manipulative nature. She has complicated relationships with all the people in her life, including her family. She lives with another woman and they have a child, and those relationships are complex. She serves as a mentor to a lot of people, but as we go further through the film, we get the impression, it becomes quite clear that those power relationships are quite problematic as well. And throughout the whole thing, it's a long film. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. It's very... it has a lot of interesting imagery. It has a lot of interesting kind of dialogue as well. There are some scenes where you just kind of sit down and you have these long exchanges that get quite deep and intellectual, I guess. And then others where, she has kind of these recurring visions and dreams, and that's really well done as well. So it's a complicated film, but impressive.
Okay, so Jason, Darcy said it was impressive. Does it live up to the critical hype?
Oh yeah, yes. Very, very good film. Where do I start? Yeah, it just turns everything on its head in a way. The film begins with the credits for a start. It starts with acknowledgements, and then at the end of the credits, at the beginning of the film, you got the director. And there are I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, there are various things in the film that are completely not what I expected. And Cate Blanchett's character, she's just really... It's really complex. When I kind of saw the brief synopsis of this film, I kind of imagined her kind of ranting and raving, and you see the good side and then you see the bad side. But her character is a lot more complex than that. She is quite manipulative, but she's also she's attractive. Her personality is really, really attractive, and it's really alluring. But there's clearly issues with the character as well. And the relationship that she has with those around her, her adopted daughter, her partner, and those part of her team. I kind of thought we'd get a lot of music in the film, but we don't. There's a lot of dialogue, and it doesn't begin like I thought it would. I thought you just see her kind of doing her thing, as a conductor, but it's actually a talk show, and and we get to learn a lot about a character just in those first couple of minutes, first 5 minutes. And yeah, it's a really well written film, and the acting is extraordinary.
Darcy, what about you? What do you think of?
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect going into it because, if you follow the discussion about it online, there are some real supporters of it. There are people who really don't like this film, and they've accused it of kind of both things at once, like that it portrays her in too positive a way or too negative a way. And, it's connected in some ways with kind of Me Too movements, but not in a way that you can boil down to a single message. And I think that's one of the key things about it is, it's not a film, it's not a puzzle where if you're smart enough, you put it together and then you get the message. It's so complex that you just have to kind of let it all wash all over you and then take in as much as you can and then try to figure out, what you think about this character at the end. And if you only think positive or negative thoughts, then maybe you kind of miss the point of the film, because I think you're supposed to feel, a real conflict within you about, because we really do kind of gain respect for her, I think, in the course of the film, at the same time as we kind of lose all respect for her.
It's a film that really sparks debate then?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
yeah, and it deals with gender really, really well. It gave me a lot to think about. And it's a complex film. It kind of,
Sure.
Lots
Darcy,
going on.
what do you make of its chances at the Oscars?
I would give it really good chances for best actress. Beyond that, I don't think it's really kind of Oscar style. It's getting a lot of nominations and everything. There's always a film every year at the Oscars that gets a lot of nominations and then kind of gets overlooked on the actual night. But her performance is so strong that I don't think they can ignore that.
That's true. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to land Best Picture and Best Director. That seems all but guaranteed at this point.
And
I say
Michelle
that now.
Yeoh is also
and next
a front
week
runner as well.
it's all quiet on the Western Front that wins Best Picture. But Michelle Yeoh could win Best Actress. I think it's. I think Michaud, in terms of the fact that she'd be the first Asian to win that award, that would be obviously a huge breakthrough, a hugely significant moment. But also Cate Blanchett. I mean, her performance is just it's a masterclass in acting.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Jason, Darcy, thank you for your reviews as always, and we'll see you again next time.
Yep. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Bye bye.